RotiBox, multi-award-winning product, which started in her grandma's kitchen.
You were okay with messy action. People are really afraid to take chances. That is the difference between people who really make it and people who don't.
No more excuses. Nothing out there's perfect. You've got to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Do you dream about roti? How do you switch off?
It was really difficult. I operated on about 2 to 4 hours, getting ill all the time. Now what I do is I have a very strict morning routine.
Growing up in Sunderland, how do you feel the two cultures together have somehow worked to make RotiBox?
Extremely important to me. It's one of my missions. I want to make life easier because I want to keep our culture alive. Remember our mums and aunts in the kitchen making the food? I feel like all of that's gone in one generation. I grew up in a white area. I was the only brown girl in my school. So I really needed female Muslim woman who could say, I've been out there and I can do this. I honestly craved it, but there was nothing at an age when I really needed it.
You said it's just a RotiBox, but it's so much more than that.
It doesn't matter what your background is, what your age is, where you came.
Why it's so important to have our voices heard, to share these stories, because it is time to change the narrative.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Global Muslim Voices with myself, Khalila Lister, your host today here on Ramadan Radio. And I'm so excited today. I have a very special guest all the way from the north of England, who's actually living in London, but you'll hear from the accent. She is Sophia Choudry. She is the founder of RotiBox, multi-award-winning product, mashallah, which started in her grandma's kitchen. And we're going to really explore that today and find out how Sophia got to where she did today, get behind the curtain, or as I've joked around on social media quite a few times and said, we're going to get behind the RotiBox and really know how she got to where she is today. So just to remind you, you are listening to Global Muslim Voices with Khalila Lister on Ramadan Radio 87.9 FM. Find us online at ramadanradio.org. Sophia. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. First radio interview, so I'm super excited.
Yeah, just right in the middle of Ramadan. How's your Ramadan going?
Alhamdulillah, really well. I've had a bit of trouble getting back to sleep after Seri.
I know, right?
But that's nothing new. It's always happened since I was a teenager. So I think I just have to accept that, you know, it's going to be a bit more challenging with the tiredness. I know everybody goes through it, but apart from that, alhamdulillah, it's been well. The children are fasting this year.
I know, you said, mashallah, it's so fun. And we both agreed that it's just great not having to make lunch.
Definitely. That's the best part.
Lunches, no sandwiches, whatever it is you make, like, it's a break.
Exactly.
And I guess now the kids are on holidays, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you can sleep in a bit later.
Yeah.
Because I can never go back to sleep after suhoor either. It's so difficult.
It's definitely easier in the holidays because then at least you don't have to be up early for the school run. So yeah, hopefully I'll be getting a bit of sleep now.
Yes.
My grandma's kitchen, but the story started with me mum.
Right.
So what happened was in 1976, me mum came to the UK from Pakistan. Like a lot of immigrants back then, she was actually coming to get married to my dad. So believe it or not, she actually got married in Sunderland.
Oh wow!
I mean,
Sunderland?
I think that's another story. How there's a little tiny group of us in Sunderland.
Okay.
Everybody else is mainly in London, but somehow we ended up in Sunderland. Aww. And she came there. I think the next day she married me dad, and my dad, mashallah, had a very big family. I think there was 12 of them in total, and you know, part of our duties as the daughter-in-law was basically to run the household. So, you know, part of that included making roti, which is like our staple diet. And when you've got 12 people in the house and you're making roti for lunch and dinner,
that's a lot of roti.
That's a lot of roti, and I think a lot of them ate at different times.
Yeah.
And I think the mess must have been driving her crazy because you have to flour this worktop, make the roti, and then clean it all, only to recreate the same mess, I don't know, maybe half an hour later. So I think she turned to me dad, and he basically found a solution. he crafted her a box made out of
it
wood.
was your dad.
It was my dad. So both of them combined is like where it all started.
It's a true love roti story.
I don't know if my mum would agree with that. I think my dad just wanted his roti and maybe less
Less
complaining.
mess and less complaining. Well, you know,
Yes.
it worked.
Yeah, so he crafted her this box, and you know, she'd make the roti in the box. When she was finished, she'd just have to close the lid. She wouldn't have to clean up. And then what happened was, obviously, he made it for his sisters, and this RotiBox basically, it spread throughout the family. Everybody had one. So when I grew up, I'd seen it in every aunt's kitchen, and I actually thought that's how you make roti, like in a box. I'd never seen anything different. Right. And then when I got married, it was only when like I got introduced to my new family, I saw, oh, they haven't got a RotiBox and I've got to make roti a different way. But when I did leave home, Dad made me a RotiBox, and people would come to the house and be like, what's this? Like, this is amazing. So I always knew that there was like a business opportunity there, because people would validate it by saying, we've never seen anything like this. This is brilliant. But that's how it all started.
What an easy solution to create no mess in a box, but yet no one was thinking about it. So obviously you said there that you saw a business opportunity. So I want to know, were you always business minded? Because I know some entrepreneurs, they were selling sweets out of their locker. I mean, I was never, ever like that. I have if you look at my background, there was no entrepreneurial spirit. It's just happened into my adult life. What about you? Were you always kind of entrepreneurial spirited? Did you always know you wanted to get into business, or was this just...
So my background, you know, I've been to uni.
Corporate girl.
I'm a corporate girl, and to be honest, it's those skills which have helped me start my own business. But in the corporate world, my main role has always been a project manager.
Okay.
Now, from when I was a child, I seem to have what my boss says is, you've got project management in your blood.
Ooh,
so I was, when I was 7 years old, when I was getting things ready for the next day at school, I would have it all methodically placed out in the sequence of what I would use it.
Okay.
So from the shirt that I put on, what am I putting on next? The sock, then this sock, and then the last thing I'm going to do is comb my hair, and there's the bobble and the clips that I'm going to put in here. Everything was lined up in order.
You're like a mother's dream. I was the opposite. My room was upside down.
So yeah, I've always been organised, methodical.
Okay.
And I've always been creative, for sure.
Okay.
So whether it was collecting leaves from the garden and making a collage, or stenciling different textures. I used to get pieces of paper and put them on like the bark of a tree, and then you know when you get a crayon, you get a crayon and you get that texture. I was always making artwork as extra work to take to my teachers and show them like I've made this. So I was very creative. I used to even get like little figurines, you know, the toys that you get from Kinder Egg.
Yes.
I used to collect them, and I'd fill the bath up with water, and I'd pretend it was a lagoon and make up stories. And I'd be there doing that for hours, just using my imagination.
I love it.
So I've always been like that. And then something happened when I was 13.
Okay.
My dad bought a video camera.
Oh, she started vlogging at 13.
So that's a long time ago, but I started making movies. I used to make little stories with my brothers and sisters, and I'd get them to act it out. My best friend at the time, we used to dress up, and we just used to be making stories all the time on the video camera. So when I look at what I'm doing now, and I look at what I was doing as a child, there's definitely some synergy there.
Yeah, there's definitely a link. Do you know what? It's really funny because
I get all my cousins together, and we would put on like little shows. We'd get like do you remember those little tents that you put up with the sticks? And we'd like plan it in there and then come out and do shows for all the family. And it is funny because obviously now I'm doing work on stage, but you can definitely see a link. So I love that. I love that you were creative. Do you think there's a similarity between entrepreneurship and creativity?
Had Instagram. I was always a Facebook girl.
Oh.
Then I had to start Instagram for my business, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember thinking, this is like a ghost town. Like there's nothing happening. I've got 20 followers, and I was putting content out there, but because I'd been to a lot of courses and I read a lot of books, I knew that you had to be consistent. and I knew that business was trial and error.
Yeah.
So it was only going to be through trying things and failing that I was going to learn what worked and what didn't work. But anyway, I kept going, I kept making videos, which I've got this motto: do something that you like and that you're proud of, and then it's fine. If it does well, great, and if it doesn't, it's fine, because at least you're at peace with what you've done, you're happy with what you've done. So yeah, I would just make content, and I slowly started learning about what was trending and trending sounds, which sometimes I think isn't good, because it can limit your creativity.
Okay.
Because if a sound is trending and it doesn't fit with what you're doing, you kind of feel like you're selling out sometimes.
Yeah.
But if you can make it fit,
Okay.
then you've hit the nail on the head. So there was a sound very, very recently. It was to the song of Celebrate, but the lyrics had changed to "What a waste of time."
Okay.
So I was.
You'll sing it for us.
No, I'm not going to sing it. I'm definitely not going to sing it.
I tried.
But it's a good recent example of, I saw that and I thought, hang on, what a waste of time. Well, with my product, what I'm trying to say is, like, if you haven't got a RotiBox and you're cleaning up the mess after you've made roti, that's a waste of time.
Absolutely.
So I was able to make that link. I was able to apply that track to my video, which is just me cleaning up a bit of flour.
Yeah.
And I think it's on 5 million. So if you can find the right trending sound with your brand message, you're definitely onto a winner. But even if you can't find the sound, just do what you believe in. My product is to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I can demonstrate the problem and then the solution, then inshallah people who can relate will get it. Not everyone's going to relate. Not everybody makes a mess. And you know what? Some people don't mind cleaning up the mess. So it's a very specific target audience.
That's it.
I hope that answered your question.
It really did.
But I mean, overall, did I ever think that I would get
100?
No, never in a million years. I started off with good intentions, and I did something that I enjoyed, that I was passionate about, and I can't believe it. Even my brother, he works in digital marketing, and he's just like, Badge, he calls me Badge, I'm his older sister. He's like, I don't know, how have you done this? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you really touched the nail on the head there with something that you said, which you said that you didn't really mind experimenting. You were okay with messy action. And I think that I've noticed, having worked with a lot of women over this past year specifically, people are really afraid to take chances. And you said, if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, I'm going to go back and do something else. And I think that is the difference between people who really make it and people who don't.
Ready on the website, I haven't done this.
Yeah.
And it was a friend of mine who said, you're launching this afternoon. No more excuses.
No more holding back.
Just get out there and you can fix it as you go along.
Right.
And that's what it is. It's if you're waiting for the perfect time, you've got to sit down and have a talk to yourself, because all you're doing is making excuses. Nothing out there is perfect.
Yes.
And like you said, you've got to feel the fear. It's like in the book. You've got to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Exactly. It's never going to be perfect. It's not Jannah. The only place that's perfect is paradise.
Exactly.
Right? It's never ever going to be perfect. So if we just wait around waiting for that perfect moment, we're going to be sat on our dreams forever.
Households, they've got 4 or 5 kids.
Yeah.
They're doing it all by themselves. But when you're a child and when it's close to home, you don't realise that these are amazing, inspirational women. It's only when you kind of grow up and look back and you think, how did they used to do that?
Yeah.
And I think at that time, at that age, I wanted somebody perhaps in the media to look up to aspire to. And I think that
look like you.
Definitely,
Yeah.
100%. And because I grew up in a white area, it was an extra layer, because I was the only brown girl in my school. So I really needed that South Asian female Muslim woman who could say, I've been out there and I can do this. I honestly craved it, but there was nothing at an age when I really needed it. So how I would like to show up now is, yes, I've got a business. Yes, of course, I want to make sales and make money, of course.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've got another purpose, which is to represent
Yeah.
women like me. I mean, I'm 44 years old now. Do you know what I mean? I'm no spring chicken, and I'm doing this now. And what I'd like to say is, it doesn't matter what your background is, what your age is, where you came from, what you thought you believed, all those things that you're holding you back. If at any point in your life you've got a dream and you want to achieve something, you can 100% do it.
Yes.
There's nothing stopping you. I mean, I haven't told you about the bit in my story. You know, I said I always knew there was a business opportunity, but it took me 10 years to act on it. 10 years. Why? Because I didn't believe in myself.
Self-doubt.
Because people like me don't do things like this. Because what will people say?
Yeah.
What will people think? All this stuff in my head. And through personal development, I had to get my mind right. I had to get my mind strong. Yeah. And obviously my husband was a massive support.
Sure.
And I had to rewire my thinking to get into that place. Now, alhamdulillah, I was introduced to personal development and coaching and all that stuff, and I was able to change my thinking. I was a negative person, you know, growing up, and it's the environment that you're in.
Yeah.
When you're growing up in a typical Pakistani Muslim household, you're not exactly taught to chase your dreams or take risks, right? And you know, that's not saying anything negative about my parents. They're trying to keep me safe.
No, of course.
You know, they want the best for me, and for them, you know, they're immigrants, so they're thinking, we working hard, you need to study so you've got an easier life. And it's all the safe stuff, study, get an office job and all that kind of stuff, but you're not really encouraged to even have a dream.
Or be creative. That's not.
Or be creative, because, you know, you've never seen it anywhere. So I feel like if I can demonstrate, like, if somebody like me, with my background, with my upbringing, can do this, and it's just a RotiBox, but I'd like to think that it represents you can achieve anything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by your side, with hard work and a dream. You can achieve it, and you've got to believe in yourself, and you can't let people put you down or talk you out of it. As long as you've got support and it's all within the boundaries of Islam, you've got every right to chase your dream.
Yes. Emotional. And I think it's so much more than, you said it's just a RotiBox, but it's so much more than that. It's a bit, like you said, allowing you to bring some representation of your culture, for girls who look like you to look up to see a strong South Asian woman from a great background with rich culture, being able to do something. And you said it yourself. How old were you when you started? Because obviously you said you're 44 now. How old were you when you started? Because this is something I really want to make sure that listeners understand. It's never too late. You're never too old. People often think, well, I'm past it now, I can't start. It's not true. There are some of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world that started at 50.
Yeah, exactly.
We're interested.
Because there's a lot of detail. Well, basically, I'd invested a lot of money into a mould to get this,
in China.
Yes, in China originally, to get this final product. And when they delivered it to me, it was just a load of rubbish.
Oh no.
And I'd taken 3 months off work sabbatical to launch this product. I'd put a year of blood, sweat and tears. It's not easy when you have a full-time job and you're doing that.
And you're a mum.
And I'm a mum, and I've now scheduled 3 months off work to launch this.
Right.
And you look at it and you think, I can't do it.
It's not good enough.
And there was like, there was about 4 things wrong with it. And when I said to the supplier in China, can you fix it? They were like, no, that's the best you're gonna get. So I had a decision to make. I was like, I've got this time off. What do I do? Do I roll with it and just launch it as it is? But my gut was saying, no, you can't do it. Because remember what I said to you about you've got to be proud of your work.
Yes.
And I wasn't proud of it. So
yeah, you don't want to put something out because that would just knock the level of quality.
Exactly. So then I basically started all again after this year, and wrote the brief again and took what I'd learned. And this time when I sent the brief off, this is again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the brief ended up with a supplier in the UK, and they phoned me up and they said, oh, we've got your brief in our hand and we think we can help you.
Yeah.
And they were based in Wales, I was in Wales 3 hours later. I just jumped in
Oh,
the car.
wow.
Yeah, I just jumped in the
See
car.
that dedication.
And I took the box with me and I said, look, these are the 4 things that are wrong. Can you fix it? We agreed prices, etc. And they were like, yeah, 3 days in design and then 6 months, producing it. That 3 days in design turned into 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't because I took my foot off the gas. It was because every time they tried to fix one element, they would break 2 others.
Okay.
And they wanted me to compromise on my vision. Like, I'll give you an example. The lid of the RotiBox folds. And you might think, what's the big deal in that? I really wanted that lid to fold because if you've got a cabinet that's low, it needs to fold so it doesn't bash into the cabinet.
Right.
So there was certain things like that I didn't want to compromise on, but it was complicating things. I wanted the hinges to be hidden at the back because when I did the design, I actually drew around my iPhone. I wanted it to be like a modern shape.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I wanted the hinges hidden, but that was causing problems. There's all these things. And they were like, well, if you do it like this and you do it like that. And I was like, no. So the project died twice.
Okay.
And I remember being in this room with 3 men and there was me. And they told us, sorry, we can't give you what you want. So now it'd been 2 years and it took every strength I had not to break down in that room.
Yeah.
Because I was just sitting there thinking, it's been 2 years and I'm still haven't got anywhere.
And this is your baby. When it's your product, it's like your baby, right?
Yeah, exactly. You just think, all that work, what a waste. And I got in the car and that's when I broke down and let it all out. And then I found another supplier and this went on for a while. Originally, the guy who killed the project, he was in the shower and he had some kind of an epiphany moment.
It's always in the shower.
It's always in the shower. So he phoned us 3 months later saying, I've cracked it.
Oh, wow.
Then we were back on. Then the design eventually was signed off. Then I thought, right, this is it. They're going to make the molds, make the product. Then that took another year. Because once it comes out of the machine, there's still a lot of adjusting to do to get it right. So from me writing that first brief to actually launching took 4 years. And I remember thinking, am I jinxed? Why is this happening? Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to stop me, prevent me from doing this, because it's for my betterment. But I had this quote on my wall, which was, God would not have put a dream in your heart without a reason. And I kept thinking, do you know what? Maybe I'm just being tested. How badly do you want it? Because you have to trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's timing.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I just kept going. I just didn't give up.
You are listening to Global Muslim Voices with me, your host, Khalila Lister, and Sophia Choudry of RotiBox Official on 87.9 FM, RamadanRadio.org. Please do join our conversation, come through, speak to us, share your opinions or questions that you have for Sophia. We will definitely get to it. So what I do know is that the majority of businesses fail and don't get to where they want to get to. The majority of businesses, especially Muslim women in business, do not continue past a certain point. When we hit a wall, we stop. When we get to a point where it's not going the way we wanted it to, we fall into frustration. And obviously with you, that could have happened in 2 times in the story you've just shared with me. It could have happened when China produce came through. You could have said, this isn't going to work. I'm going to go back to my corporate job, because you had a job. It's not like you had nothing. Yeah. Or again, when they said to you, it's just not going the way you wanted to, you could have just said, I'm going to give up. What is it, Sophia, about you? Alhamdulillah, obviously everything is from Allah, that made you determined? Because that is a key ingredient to keep. Entrepreneurship is not easy. You see all these coaches that tell us, you just work for 2 hours a day and you can kick back. No, entrepreneurship is not easy, and it's about being driven. And we both said it earlier when we were talking, sometimes a bit obsessive and passionate and dedicated. What is it about you and RotiBox that made you never give up, even in the face of it all crumbling in front of you?
It took a lot of work on myself to get into that position where I was, right, I'm going to do this. So one of the reasons why I did decide to pursue it was I didn't want the regret of I didn't want to be 65 and look back and think, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I'd launched that RotiBox, that idea that I'd had for over 10 years, I wonder what would have happened. I didn't want to look back and ever feel that regret.
Yeah.
So once I'd made that decision, I'm doing this and I'm all in, that was it. Once that decision's made with conviction and 100% passion and dedication, and I had my husband supporting me, and I was like, look, I'm doing this, I'm in, and I'm not going to stop until I do this. And he's like, I'm with you. But then even all these roadblocks were happening continuously, one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah.
I was just like, I've got to see it through. 1 year was a lot for me.
Yeah.
Then 2 years, and I was like, don't stop till you get there.
Yes.
Don't stop till you get there. And these are just trials and tribulations I didn't realise at the time of being an entrepreneur. Every day there's a new problem.
Oh, yeah, always. Sometimes internally, sometimes externally, right?
Yeah, so I thought, once my product's out there and it's launched, it'll be a lot easier. Well, of course not. There's always something, and you just have to be ready for the next problem. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm not expecting them. Just my mind's ready. It's not going to break me. It's certainly not going to make me stop wanting to move forward. It is tough, but you've got to be like a bullet, and just keep going, like it's tunnel vision, and all you can see is the end point. And along the way, there's going to be roadblocks and distractions and tears and so many things to try and digress you from your end goal.
Keep going like a bullet.
I think that does kind of best express what it is to be in business and to keep going. So obviously this show is called Global Muslim Voices, right? Mm-hmm. And we're really about amplifying the stories of different cultures and different heritages. And for you, obviously your culture and your background is in the South Asian. Your product is very much bringing the flavors and the authenticity of roti. And you just explained to me that roti, chapati, same thing, right?
Yeah.
But obviously growing up in Sunderland, being a Sunderland lass, a northern lass, how do you feel the two cultures together have somehow worked to make RotiBox the success that it is at the moment?
It's one of my missions.
Okay.
It's one of my missions. So first of all, I want to make life easier for people who make roti. I want to take away that pain. Why? Why do I want to do that? Because I want to keep our culture alive.
Yes.
Okay? Now, it's a personal reason, and I'm sure there's people who can relate, and I'm sure there's people who can't, but I can only speak for myself.
Yeah.
If you think about culture, and I think about growing up in our culture, what is that made up of? It's made up of the language that we speak, right? So obviously my mother tongue is Punjabi. It's the clothes that we wear, our shalwar kameez, whatever, our traditional clothes. Growing up, I was wearing it all the time.
Okay.
Music, movies, all the Bollywood movies, all the classics we used to watch with Amitabh Bachchan. You'd all be around with your cousins, you'd be learning the moves, having fun as a kid. And even just our values as family, I remember when my cousins used to come from London, there'd be like 10 of us in a room sleeping on the floor, and it was fine. If you think back now, all of us sharing the same bathroom, and I remember our mums and aunts in the kitchen making the food, and all the men would be in one room, and I feel like all of that's gone. Everything's changed in one generation.
Yeah.
And it's literally been from one extreme to what I've just described there. And I've just mentioned that very quickly. I could go into lots of detail. Yeah.
Rich culture.
The culture growing up was absolutely incredible. And I really feel so blessed that I got to experience that, being a British-born Muslim.
Yeah.
And really experiencing what it is to kind of have that Pakistani culture as well, the South Asian culture. Now, my children now, and most children now, I'm generalising, my children can't speak the language. Yes, it's my fault. I put my hands up to that. They don't speak the language. Yes, they wear the clothes, but mainly on special occasions and when they go to weddings. Are they watching the movies that we grew up watching? Sometimes we've got to put the subtitles on because obviously they don't understand what's going on. Everything's changing. but a big part of culture is food,
Yes.
right?
Yes. You can keep that alive.
And I feel like through roti, through making the process easier for people, at least that's my contribution to keeping the South Asian culture alive through roti and market research.
Okay.
So I went on a Facebook group and I said, I've got a new product, it involves roti. I'm looking for 5 to 10 people to take part in an experiment. And as a thank you, you'll get, I think it was £50 worth of Next vouchers. So I got people, volunteering to try out a product. They didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So I basically turned up at people's houses with the RotiBox and I tested the product with 10 different households. And what I learned from that experiment was when I was going to the Gujarati community, their feedback was, well, we don't have that much mess actually. And that's when I discovered they put oil in the flour. So when you put oil in your dough, you need less flour on your worktop. Right. So that was the first thing I learned. They haven't actually got that much. That's why I said to you, some people don't make a mess.
Yes.
It's not for them.
Yes.
Then the second thing I learned was that they use a totally different style of rolling pin. It's a much thinner one, looks like a drumstick.
Okay.
I think it's called a velen. And again, it might be a bit tricky possibly to use that in the RotiBox. Not always. I have got a lot of customers now who do use that. And when I left that market research, I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to adapt this product so that they can use it with a velen. And I was all ready to redesign it. And then I remember thinking, hang on a second, maybe it's just not for them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like, they're just not my target audience.
And that's okay.
So what I need to do is focus on the audience that it is for.
Yeah.
And really portray the benefit it can bring to them. So important lesson, if your product is not appreciated or recognized by somebody, it's just not for them.
I love that so much, and that's it. That hits the nail on the head. We can't please everyone.
Yeah.
Your product, your business, your service is not going to be for everyone, and that's okay. Just talk to the ones who already know that they need it, and you'll do well.
Having said that, I still have got a few
Who's
customers
still-
from the.
of
So
course.
that's nice. Yeah, I
Of course.
appreciate that.
Right, viewers, listeners, well, you can't see us, but listeners, we are into the last 9 minutes. So I want to encourage you, if anyone wants to send a message in with some questions or thoughts, we have an award-leading product developer right here to answer any of your questions. So please send a message in. I've also been told that I've been highly requested on Ramadan Radio. Was it Leicester?
Yeah.
So people, if you're listening, send us a message in because I can't get to Leicester at the moment. I'm right here. Come and send us a message and listen, share your thoughts, inshallah. And the number to do that on is 077614 60614. That's 077614 60614. Okay, the next thing I really want to ask you. We've been speaking a lot about roti.
Yeah.
This is a lot about roti. It's all about roti. Do you dream about roti? How do you switch off? Because look, it is very easy if you're a very driven person to become obsessive with what you're doing, to get very one-track minded because you have a mission, you have a goal. But you're a mum, you're a wife. How do you switch off? How do you find the balance? Let's be honest now. Is it hard? How do you do it?
It was really difficult. I think I operated on about 2 to 4 hours sleep daily. I was working all hours. I remember, but you know what it is? At the time, I wanted to.
Yeah, I know.
Because I was starting a business and I was loving every minute of it. So when the kids went to bed, I could quite easily go into the study at 8 o'clock and I could just work until 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And I loved doing it. The downside was that I'd be binge eating while I was doing it. I'd have packets of crisps there next to us eating, keeping us going.
And just sitting down
and chocolate,
all day,
yeah.
moving.
You know, that was kind of like my treat for working so late. But yeah, I just kept going. But obviously that's going to take its toll.
Yes.
So sleep deprivation was a big thing in the early days. That's the first time that I'd also experienced anxiety. I had never experienced anxiety in my life until I launched my own business. I think that was linked to other aspects of social media that I wasn't expecting, but I think we're going to possibly talk about that later on. But going back to your question, the first 18 months was very, very hard. There was no balance, and then I was just getting ill all the time.
Yeah, burnout is
I was just ill all the time, getting calls. I was just a mess. So then I had to put some strict rules in place. Now what I do is I have a very strict morning routine.
Okay.
So 2 hours before I have to wake the children up, those 2 hours are for me. So, wake up for Fajr, do my prayers, I do my affirmations, I go for a run. It's not a long run.
Amazing.
Sometimes I'll just go for a walk.
Okay.
But just, I have a timer set. I'll run for 10 minutes. When it goes off, I turn around and I come back. And then, I read 10 pages of a book. It's called
I love the way you say that again. Book.
The book, yeah. The Miracle Morning. It's all basically taken from there. And since I've been doing that, it's just completely changed the way my day goes. Because when you start off your morning like that, then you're setting yourself up for success. Okay. And then I just feel like my mind's in the right place, my body's in the right place. Now I can wake my children up and, get them to school. So, and the other rule that I've done, which is I'm very strict with, is when I pick my children up from school, I am present.
Yes.
There's no work until they go to bed.
Yeah, it has to be.
Sometimes I'll work, but sometimes I don't. I'm trying to move away from working in the evenings.
Okay.
But yeah, when my children are there, I'm completely present. I'm not sitting there with my laptop. I am with them. Even if they're not particularly doing anything, I just feel like being there is going to make a difference. So I've had to put some boundaries in place.
Yeah.
And I learned that from year one of, I can't continue like this. Yeah. I'm not a robot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to end up very ill.
Very, very similar experiences of just starting off and becoming so obsessive and loving it, but at the problem of other people's expense, because they didn't ask us to do this. Our kids didn't ask us to do this. Yeah. So for us to be completely obsessed and absorbed in it, it's not fair. And I think that's really important that you said to be present. That's what I do now. When I'm working, that's my time. I'm intentional. My kids need to know this is my time. But when I'm not working, to be intentional. And we've got a question in from one of our listeners, which is, what is some advice for having a business and being busy? Because of course, businesses keep you busy, but when you've also got other things going on, how do you find a balance between busyness and keeping going?
Family, I've still got to do all the normal stuff. I've still got to do laundry and ironing and dusting and clean bathrooms and cooking. So all that doesn't stop just because you've got a business. So you just got to be super organized. I have routines and schedules for everything. Try and if I cook something, I know it's going to last 2 days.
Yes, I do that as well.
I used to do it on the weekend, and I want to try and go back to that because it's a godsend not having to cook during the week. So it's it's things like that, making sure that you basically have a timetable of, what are the non-negotiables, for example, making sure you've got a meal ready for your family.
Yeah.
And then, because it depends on what your priorities are. My priority is my family.
Yeah. Okay, Sophia, we're down to our last minute.
Wow, it goes quick.
It does. My question that I ask every single guest that I have on is, if you had one big message that you could share with the world, what would it be?
It's really too simple. Always do the right thing. Always do the right thing, and just have good intentions, help other people. You helping others isn't going to affect you or your success in any way. And just have a true, clean, pure heart. Always believe in yourself, believe in God, have faith, work hard, and don't stop till you get there.
Much for joining. I could talk to you all day. There's still so much I want to ask you, but we'll have to save that for another day. Let's know where we can find you.
RotiBox official.
Official.
Don't forget the official on the end. My product, the video ad, is on rotibox.co.uk, and I'm also on TikTok.
100%. And likewise, everyone, you can catch me again with another amazing guest next week on Global Muslim Voices, and you can find me on social medias at Power of Voice Academy. Very, very, very passionate about sharing the stories of phenomenal Muslims like our lovely Sophia that we had today, and just understanding why it's important to have these voices heard, why it's important to have these voices shared, because it's time to change the narrative. And like we heard from Sophia's story, she didn't see many people who looked like her growing up. So now she gets to be that example, and we're very passionate about making sure we share that with our viewers.